Detention in the United States. Important. Anyone without legal status who crosses the border is at risk of being detained in a detention center that operates like a prison for immigrants, even if you are crossing the border with permission of the U.S. government via a process such as humanitarian parole. This video is going to explain more about immigration detention within the U.S. and the risk associated with being detained. What is immigration detention in the United States? Within the United States immigration system, detention facilities are intended to hold individuals awaiting deportation and those suspected of visa violations, entry without permission, or other civil immigration violations. Non-U.S. citizens apprehended at the border or in the United States can be detained by government immigration agencies before or during their immigration proceedings. Migrants apprehended at the border are first held in processing centers run by Customs and Border Protection, CBP, after which they could be transferred to detention centers run by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Who is at risk of being detained when entering the U.S.? Anyone who crosses the border, even if you are trying to seek asylum, and even if you cross at a port of entry, runs the risk of being detained in a detention center. There are many reasons why an individual can be detained. You will have a higher risk of being detained upon entry if you have a criminal record in any country, have been arrested or charged with a crime in the U.S. even if it happened a long time ago, were previously deported or ordered removed from the U.S., missed prior immigration hearing dates, crossed the border without permission such as crossing by a river or desert, are a single man traveling without children, have tattoos that are associated with gangs or criminal groups. If an individual is not detained when they enter the United States, but they are charged with a crime, including traffic violations, at any point while inside the U.S., they can also be sent to ICE detention. Immigration proceedings are separate from proceedings in criminal court. This means that even if an individual pays the fine or completes the time in jail required by the criminal court, that person can still be sent to immigration detention after their criminal case is finished. Who runs ICE detention facilities? ICE uses a variety of facilities to detain non-citizens. These facilities include state and federal prisons, as well as private detention centers. Private prison companies own and operate contract detention facilities. This means that private corporations who have contracts with ICE are receiving lots of money from the U.S. government to detain migrants in their facilities. Over 70% of people detained each day in ICE custody are held in private detention facilities. It is common for these facilities to charge people extremely high amounts of money for basic necessities such as toothpaste, soap, phone calls, etc., forcing people to work for the prisons, typically earning very low wages around $1 per day. How long are people held in ICE detention? Some people are detained for only a few weeks, while others are detained for the entirety of their immigration proceedings, which could be up to a year or more. There is usually no way to know beforehand how long someone may be held in ICE detention. If someone is detained, they can make a formal request to be released, but there is no guarantee that the request will be granted. Often, if ICE or an immigration judge agrees to release someone, that person may still have to pay a bond of at least $1,500 in order to be released. If someone has any kind of criminal history, it is more likely that the bond will be set much higher or that the request will be denied. However, even if someone does not have any criminal history, their request to be released can still be denied. What are the conditions inside ICE detention facilities? The standards in ICE facilities vary, but most facilities look and feel identical to a prison. Migrants in detention are forced to wear matching jumpsuits that identify them as being detained. If they have to be transported outside the facility for any reason, they will typically have to wear handcuffs and shackles on their feet. Each detention facility has its own rules about when everyone must wake up, when migrants are allowed to be outside, and what time everyone will eat and sleep. Many migrants experience medical neglect and inadequate food, water, and sanitation. Detention facilities often deny treatments for serious medical conditions, fail to provide migrants with disability accommodations, and have inadequate or no mental health services. ICE officers and staff at the detention facility can also punish migrants by placing them into solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is a form of segregation in which individuals are held in total isolation. Individuals in solitary confinement are generally held in small cells for days and rarely have contact with others. In addition to insufficient medical care, Migrants held in ICE detention centers experience a lack of rights and resources. Individuals in detention often struggle to collect evidence and find witnesses for their immigration hearings. Also, facilities are usually located in very remote locations throughout the United States where access to an attorney is extremely difficult. Many individuals encounter multiple forms of harm, including mental, emotional, sexual, and physical abuse while detained in ICE facilities. Family separation. In the past, families arriving to the United States together were frequently separated. Fathers and children over 18 were sent to adult detention centers, and mothers and minor children were generally sent to family detention facilities. The Biden administration is not currently detaining mothers and children in family detention centers, but that does not guarantee that it could not happen in the future. However, family separation can and does still happen. While there are legal protections that prevent children from being detained over a certain length of time, any adult can be placed into immigration detention. This means that even if a group crosses together as a family, CBP can decide to send any adult family member to detention. One consequence of this practice is that spouses or partners can be placed in separate immigration proceedings even though they have, in many cases, fled a common threat as a family. Children under the age of 18 who arrive at the border without their biological parents go through a different process. If the children are traveling with other family members that are not their biological parents, they will usually be separated from those family members. These children are often held in specific facilities for unaccompanied children while they go through this process. Detention and the LGBTQ+ community. While in immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, detention, many individuals, particularly queer people of color, encounter multiple forms of harm, including mental, emotional, sexual, and physical abuse. LGBTQ+ asylum seekers have described additional discrimination and abuse as well as barriers to accessing essential services, including life-saving antiretroviral therapy and gender-affirming healthcare, services that include medical and mental health services, continuation of hormonal treatment, and other services for transgender and non-binary people that are crucial to their health and well-being. Furthermore, ICE leaves transgender and non-binary individuals vulnerable to violence as they fail to assign them to detention facilities according to gender identity and instead depend on the sex assigned at birth or resort to solitary confinement. Immigration detention is a cruel, racist, and unnecessary tool that is used by our government to make an already difficult and traumatic process even more unbearable. We share this information with you so that you can be prepared for all possible outcomes and make informed decisions that are best for you and your family. For more information, visit our website www.alotrolado.org/info. In solidarity, al otro lado.